Hello, everyone. This is Marie Labras,
And I'm Justin Willis.
and we're here today, and we're going to be talking today to you, the audience, about a situation for an older man that lives in the community. He's 87 years old. Um, yeah, I see your daughter. Uh, and it's Ziggy. And how do you pronounce his last name?
So I have a really hard time saying it correctly. Shezmik.
Cheshnek.
Shezmizek. As so Ziggy is an international pianist. He's a truly amazing guy. And for everybody that's watching, real quick, for a little bit of disclosure, I am at the Old World Restaurant on the back porch. Behind me, you may see some traffic because I'm right here by the door. I've got the owner, Christine, standing beside me. The owner of Old World, she's phenomenal. I'm going to pan over to her for a moment. She's been helping us throughout this entire process with Ziggy of making sure that we can translate to speak with him adequately. That way we can figure out what his real wants and needs are and just making sure that he's comfortable having the conversation. So a big shout out to Old World Restaurant for all of their help. If you guys are looking for some great food, including Polish pierogies, they've got them. You should come and check them out. They're pretty phenomenal. But Ziggy is a concert pianist, and he's phenomenal with his skill. He is truly amazing. And am I echoing on you, Marie?
No, you're good. You're
Okay.
good.
He's truly amazing. Ziggy has been through a lot in his life. He started out in Warsaw, Poland during a time of absolute war and ravish. He dealt with massive communism growing up. His dad was in a concentration camp where he was locked up while Ziggy was a child. He lost his 10-year-old sister and his dad both in the concentration camps where they were killed during medical experimentation. Because of that, Ziggy has some interesting fears of healthcare and healthcare related people. I mean, obviously understandable, but yesterday, throughout this entire fundraiser and the things that we've been doing, yesterday we kind of had a turn of events happen, and the trailer park turned off Ziggy's water and electric to the trailer, trying to get people to move out a little bit quicker.
And
And so,
Justin, I'm going to interrupt you because people out there don't know what you're talking about with Ziggy.
sure.
Okay. Uh, Go to the story about why you're doing a fundraiser for Ziggy, how he ended up in the situation. And I know
Perfect.
that,
So you want me to go back 2 more weeks, not just yesterday.
yes, I want, because we're talking to an audience that may not know the story because we
Absolutely.
go worldwide. So,
Absolutely. So I got a phone call from Craig at the Northport Sun. I work for a company called Care Patrol. We do senior placement. We help families that are looking for independent living, assisted living, and memory care. We help tailor to them exactly what their need is and what the financial ability is. And we help them find a building that fits best for them. So if that's a $1,500, $1,900 building or a $10,000 building, we find what their need is. So Craig called me to help Ziggy. He's an 87-year-old Polish man. He is currently living in the Mayaka River trailer park at the corner of US 41 and River Road. The trailer park is currently has been condemned, and they are demolishing all of the trailers inside of the park. There are two actual mobile home trailers that are still standing. Ziggy's is one, another one that's set for demolition on Monday, and then there is one camper trailer that still has to be removed from the park. Craig called me telling me about Ziggy and what his needs were. So I went down there to meet Ziggy. Financially, he doesn't qualify. He doesn't have any extra benefits to get into assisted living. He doesn't have savings to buy a new home. His social security is lower than what we would expect from an 87-year-old man, so he can't afford more than $900 a month for his total bills. So when I started calling the nonprofits, the solution was they could put him in a rental. We'll help him get into a rental. Okay, great. Like we greatly appreciate that. What rental do you know of that we can find for under $500 a month. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, oh no, you got to find $1,200, $1,300, $1,500. Well, that's great. Who's going to pay the difference? Because now we're talking about burdening the system financially over the next 10 years to take care of this man, when we can come up with a viable solution that provides instant self-sustainability with a community that will help take care of him. So I met with all the nonprofits. I discussed the option with them because my end result for Ziggy was ownership and wasn't to rent, because that was the most affordable route. All the nonprofits turned us down. We didn't qualify. We didn't fit. You know, people were really mean, saying that we're trying to give Ziggy more than we would anybody else. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to give Ziggy more than anyone else. I'm trying to give Ziggy something equal to what he has now. So that's a trailer where he can fit his piano, where he can live comfortably, and where he can afford the lot rent, the electric, and his groceries. And that's what we found in the Shady Haven down in Inglewood. It's right off of Dearborn. It's very conveniently located. He can walk to Dearborn. He can walk to the grocery stores. We're working with the Dearborn Association to get a piano put out on Dearborn Street that he could play and be able to entertain people and possibly give him some form of a source of income. He does have onsets of dementia, so he's forgetting how to speak English real great, and he's becoming a little bit more confused. So we want him to be in a community with people that understand the importance of checking on your neighbor, of calling him and saying, hey, how are things going? How are you doing? You know, hey, Ziggy, I see you're out here. Let me bring you back this way. So we want to try and find those options to make it functional to where he's getting. You guys don't mind the background for a moment. I'm going to switch to where it's a little bit quieter for a moment. It's trying to find a way to make sure that we're taking care of him long term. I don't want to burden our nonprofits. I don't want to burden DCF. I don't want to burden, the Medicaid system before it's necessary. By buying the trailer, we're also giving him the ability of having funds to help pay for assisted living when he's ready to transition. That $25,000 will get him through 5 months of care while he goes through the Medicaid process. That's a huge benefit for him. So it solves a problem for the entire system.
No, when you're talking about Ziggy, let's go back, and you started to tell the history of his family, because he's originally from Poland.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
his father and his part of his family was in medical experimentation. During which war was that?
It would have been at the end of World War II. And then apparently there was also stuff going on in Poland after that they went through with communism.
Right. And because he's 87 years old, he has a long history going through that and going through communism and going through medical experimentation with the family. Now, he had his father and sister died through those experimentations.
Yeah.
And just for the audience to know, any of the things that we talk about today are Justin's and my opinion. It is not of the radio station, so we want to make that clear to make sure that everybody knows that this is nothing that the radio station is doing. This is something that Justin has put together with people out within the community. Now, let's get back to Ziggy and he was a concert pianist around the world.
Yes. So Ziggy has played for royalty. He has played for kings and queens. He has played for presidents. He has played for everyday people around the world, from Poland to Ukraine to Czechoslovakia to oh my gosh, he was telling me about one the other day. He was in England and played for the Queen of England. And it's amazing to listen to these stories that he tells you, because there's so much passion about his piano and about his gift that when he talks, it's the only thing that matters is that piano.
Now, do you know where he learned how to play piano? When did that start? What's the history behind that?
So he got into it a little bit. When he was a boy, he learned how to play the accordion. And from the accordion, it transitioned to the piano. And Ziggy was an engineer, and by trade, he was an engineer. And he built one of the high rises in New York. He actually developed the layout of the high rise. But when he was younger, he fell in love with the sound of the piano. And in the communist area that he lived in, he loved to play American music. And he would get in really bad trouble because America was terrible according to the people around him. And how could you want to go to America? And he's like, it's not that I want to go to America. I just love American music. So when he was learning, one of the big things that he loved to play was basic American music from the 1930s and 40s.
So when he learned that, when did he get into the concert, being able to travel? And you may not know the whole story, but
I only know a little bit of the story. I know that when he was done, so Ziggy came to America chasing a woman, madly in love with this lady, left his ex-wife and his son in Poland, came over here to be with her. Well, the lady just wasn't interested in being with him. So they have been best friends for the last 50 years. And everywhere she moves, he follows. In New York, he would play nightclubs and he would play piano bars, and he was a massive night owl, and he just wanted to share his craft. So from there, he traveled down to Texas. He played in Texas. He lived in Key West for about 6 years, playing in Key West. He played in Sarasota at the Hyatt until they got rid of the entertainment position at the Hyatt. So he has played here locally as well. But it's amazing because when you meet Ziggy and you watch him play, he gets so into it. Like you can watch this man going from being completely aggravated over a situation to where all of a sudden he's sitting behind this piano and nothing else in the world matters except for the music that he's about to share with you.
well, I can actually play some of that. Let me see if I can bring it
Perfect.
up while you're talking more about that. And I think it's on here. Let me see if I got the right page up here. Yeah, this is that. So I will play this so people can know what you're talking about. I don't know if it's
Yeah, we're doing the radio show.
yay. Yay, yay, yay. That was great. Wasn't that great?
Isn't he amazing? It truly. I apologize for those of you guys that hear. I'm at Old World trying to do a little bit of damage control and fix some of the things that are happening throughout the day. So if you guys hear some side conversation, I do apologize.
I
We're
muted
just
you. I muted.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep things moving throughout the day, and this has been a very fluid situation from the time we started working with him all the way through to now.
Well, let's talk about what you have for a fundraiser going on, and then we're going to talk about some of the other things that are happening. Because and I want the audience to really understand that when you're a senior citizen and you're alone, and he speaks two languages, both Polish and English, and probably more than that. Uh, you don't have advocates if you don't have family or friends to
Amen.
take care of you. And in our country, contrary to a lot of foreign countries, we don't take care of our elderly like we should. In
Right.
other places, they don't even have, I don't know what countries don't have nursing homes, but that is a newer thing that's happened in the last century or so that people went and lived with family. You know,
Right.
you take care of your elderly. So here's an 87-year-old man, you know, that is just trying to live out his life, and he's being hit by so many factions that are happening. So let's talk about some of the things that you're doing to actually help get him into this home, and then we'll
Absolutely.
talk about some of the other things. And if you notice on the bottom of the page, scrolling, if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, because we're on both right now, the GoFundMe is there. Justin Cody Willis at gmail.com, and his phone number 941-237-7907. So if you want to get involved and help with this elderly man, those are the places to contact. So go ahead, tell us the
Absolutely. So we have a GoFundMe account that is going now. Currently, we've raised. I believe I saw it a few minutes ago. It was 13,000 on the GoFundMe. I want to break that down a little bit. Just under 9,000 of that money has come from donor by donor. Each of you guys, one person at a time. $5, $6, $9, $20. $100, $200, $500. You guys have been amazing. Everybody that has got it in their heart to help this man, it is just absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, $13,722. So 5,000 of that number has come from the developer of MQ Development. I went ahead and added it in there because I wanted people to be able to see the progression of the donations that we're doing. So that's how we've gotten to the $13,722 there. Now, besides that, what's not on there is last night I picked up a check through some private donors and some amazingly generous people. I picked up a check last night for $5,000 to help go towards Ziggy's trailer. So even though that number on there says $13,722, as of right now, we have $18,722. The good news is I made an agreement with the guy who owns the trailer. Once we had $15,000, Ziggy can actually move into the trailer. So Monday, I will be going to meet him to be able to transfer $15,000 into his bank account and to be able to take possession of the trailer for Ziggy. We also are having a benefit concert at the Old World Restaurant tonight and tomorrow. Ziggy was supposed to come in and play that concert, and unfortunately, the sheriff's department took him in for some observation at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. Ziggy was found in a community next door to him, collecting some water in a gallon jug. So he lives right next door to a beautiful community called the Mayaca River Trails. It's very high-end homes, beautiful area. Ziggy, I guess, had been sneaking over and taking water from a water hose next door. I'm trying to hide my face because I don't mean to laugh whenever I say it, but it's funny that he is so resourceful that he found a water hose to fill the water to come back with. But because he did that, when the cops found him, they were very concerned and confused as to what was going on. So they took him to the hospital for an evaluation. When he got to the hospital, I got there about 15 to 20 minutes after he did. They found that he was having some atrial fib, and they needed to bring his heart rate back down. They immediately gave him some medication. His heart rate was still a little sporadic and erratic. They wanted to give him another dose and to keep him overnight. Ziggy asked to be discharged. He said that he was very uncomfortable with the hospitals, as each of us can understand with his background and what he went through. I'd be afraid of hospitals as well. So Ziggy wanted to leave. At that point of time, the doctor decided that because he could not speak English, that he was not competent enough to speak for himself. So they then Baker acted, or they then transferred Ziggy to Sarasota. Once Ziggy got to Sarasota, at that point of time, I was listed as his point of contact and his emergency contact in his paperwork. Something happened at the hospital with the hospital staff. I asked for an ombudsman. And when I asked for an ombudsman, for those of you guys that don't know what an ombudsman is your patient advocate. It is somebody that you all have rights to, you all have access to. They are who fights for you while you are in the hospital. If you feel that your healthcare provider is unethical, they're not doing what they need to be doing, you're not being treated right, you have the right to ask for an ombudsman. Normally, they will provide one for you relatively quickly. Sarasota Memorial did this a little bit different yesterday. When I asked for the ombudsman, I was then kicked out of the hospital and no longer allowed to talk for Ziggy. Once they kicked me out, they then transferred him up to Sarasota. Somehow they have removed me as his emergency contact and point of contact. And as of today, they have Baker acted Ziggy, stating that he is not able to communicate for himself. Because of that, we have reached out to Buhoff Law Firm, because who else are you going to call? We live in Northport, and Buhoff is here. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit their specialty, but Tatiana, being the amazing attorney that she is, Kate Shakirov being one of the legal assistants there, immediately said, what can we do? Let's figure out some solutions. Let's talk through this. This isn't our wheelhouse, but let's do some research to figure out what avenues we take. In that time period, I've reached out to a past commissioner who was also an attorney. I spoke with her about the process. I found out how the Baker Act process will work from this point and how we can challenge it. So we're in the process of using the legal team to try and do what's best for Ziggy once again, as we're fighting a broken system. Unfortunately, the system isn't in place, isn't set up to where it does what's best necessarily for what the person wants, but what is best from what the medical provider thinks. So in this time period, I don't know how much you might know about atrial fib, but that's where your heart rate is extremely, extremely elevated. So they medicate you to bring that rate back down. If you do research with atrial fib, it can sometimes be induced due to extremely stressful situations. I tried having this conversation in the hospital. Again, rather than dealing with it, communicating through it, finding a viable solution, I was kicked out of the room, was told I would be trespassed. So unfortunately, Sarasota Memorial has their own police force. So whenever I called Northport PD to try and get them involved, it was out of their jurisdiction. So now that he's in Sarasota, we're reaching out to the sheriff. We're trying to get him involved. I have been speaking to a lady named Cheryl in risk management up at Sarasota Memorial. Last night, she was working with me. Today, it's a totally different scenario. Things have literally changed overnight. So, I do ask people, if you're concerned, this is probably borderline what we shouldn't do, but call the hospital, voice your concern, just like you do whenever the Senate does something you're unhappy with. Tell them about it. The number for the hospital for risk management is 941-917-1994. I don't know if calling is going to help or not, but the more people that show that we support this man, maybe the less likely that he will become a victim of the system. Rather than somebody who is helped, this is almost going counterproductive for what he needs.
Okay, Justin.
Again, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
Not the radio station.
No, yeah. But one of the things that I want the audience to actually know is at the Old World restaurant, they're from Poland.
Yes, they are.
And they were able to translate.
Yeah.
You brought Ziggy to Old World, and they are able to speak with him and communicate.
Correct.
Now, and I know that when you even fill out, even for voting, they have it in Spanish or English.
And Polish now.
Yeah, and Polish now. So there are people that, especially if you were born in a foreign country and you're going through the aging process, and many of us are, you may revert back to that if he's having some memory issues. However, we need to take care of our seniors.
Exactly.
I'm a senior myself, and I do have family. So I'm not going to be one of those people that somebody's going to have to take care of. However, maybe I will be. No, I don't know. Yeah, but
Write down your wants. One piece of advice that I give every one of you guys listening. One piece of advice is write down what your wants are. Write down what it is that you have a plan for. Where I messed up is last week I should have went with Ziggy and had a POA put in place to follow through this process. And instead I was trying to still trust the system and know that we'd be okay until Tuesday when we filled out the POA, the transfer of the trailer, and everything else. I thought we would be okay. I never would have expected this to be Ziggy's outcome now.
No, and that's the sad thing is, especially if you don't have anybody there to advocate for you all the way, which you're doing, Justin. And just to be clear to the audience too, Justin, actually, what's your degree in? Because I know you have a healthcare degree.
I don't no. My degree is actually in theology and ministry. Most people don't realize it. But because I owned my own business, I decided to get a degree in something that I was passionate about rather than getting a degree in what made sense. Now, a few years later, I wish I would have done it a little bit differently, but I am finally finishing up my doctorate in theology, so that's exciting.
Well, my son has that too. My son's a minister. When you're talking about that, though, you are in the healthcare profession.
Yes, I am. Yep. So I work for a company called Care Patrol. So I have 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry. I've trained over 7,000 CNAs in my career. I owned Imagine Medical Prep, which was a medical training center. I owned 4 physical therapy centers, Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton, and Northport. I also owned a nurse registry, which is the private duty care that Ziggy's going to need. And P.S. for everybody watching, we have private duty caregivers who have agreed to step in to help him throughout this process, which is phenomenal for Ziggy because they're offering to do it at no cost. Again, avoiding the burden on the system because we found an alternative for what he needs.
And you're looking for an attorney that, type of an attorney that.
Yeah, so I am looking for an elder law attorney right now that might be able to work with us pro bono throughout some of this. Some of the things that we need are the POA. We do have other attorneys who are working with us, but this isn't necessarily their wheelhouse. So one of the suggestions from one of the attorneys was is if we could find an elder law attorney and have each of them working together, now we've got a full team that's ready to fight for this man and show people that we're going to do whatever it takes to take care of Ziggy. We don't want him to fall through the system. We don't want him to fall through the cracks. We don't want him to become another statistic that gets shoved inside of a skilled nursing facility, which is the equivalent of a rehabilitation. That's not the level of life that this guy should be punished to at this point.
And when Ziggy actually retired into that Myakka River Park, it was being promoted to actors and entertainers because it was high end at that time.
Yeah, back in the 80s, it was the place.
It was a place to be.
Yep.
Well, since that time, it got run down, and I think there's only 2 trailers left there. And if you've ever been by 41 and River Road on the corner, in that there's that one old gas station there.
The Myakka River Trading Post. How many of you guys listen? Remember getting your ice cream cone from the Myakka River Trading Post or getting your chicken gizzards. My favorite thing to get from there was the chicken gizzards and the double mint chocolate chip ice cream. Oh my gosh. I remember my grandma stopping in to buy her pack of cigarettes, and I'd get so excited that she ran out because if she ran out of cigarettes, it meant I got chicken gizzards and ice cream.
Oh, isn't that hysterical? And right behind that is the Myakka River Park, and at one time it was nice, going by there, but they've removed stuff. Removed all but the 2 trailers, and they left behind the debris. In fact, if I can bring up a picture that the Patch have posted, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. And I know if you're listening on radio, you won't be able to, but that's okay. You can go to the Facebook or YouTube page to take a look at it. And let me see.
Sorry, you guys. I keep adjusting. I'm now behind the Old World restaurant, and my view there is a beautiful car behind me, so that's a good thing.
Well, we'll take you off screen so you can background, and you can see here. This is what the trailer park has been left with, and
So
there's
for
only
for
go
those of you guys listening, let me paint you the picture of what this looks like. So there are piles at least 8 tires high. There are axles to vehicles sitting in front of it. Behind that, there is a truck that is being worked on in pieces. And off of the side of that truck sits a 3-wheel bicycle with an American flag off of the back of it. It literally looks like a war zone in the middle of America. I have never seen anything like it. And in the middle of this lives an 87-year-old man.
And when you look at this, when the developer bought this 2 years ago, they ended up turning off the water to the leftover trailers in there. When did they do that?
That was about 6 months ago.
About 6 months ago, and Ziggy's been having to scramble to try to. He received an eviction notice, also, right?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
And what was the justice behind the eviction? Because they bought it.
Yeah, so I don't want to lead anybody down the wrong road of understanding here. So understand that with this, thank you very much. We appreciate you greatly. With this process, they were told about 2 years ago what was going on. Ziggy was told in English. He was then left alone, and everybody kind of went about their business. They then brought in some state DCF workers who wanted to work with Ziggy, but again, language barrier got in the way and made things a little bit difficult. The assistance didn't quite play out in the way that they had planned for it to play out. So there were some attempts made, but it was never a sustainable attempt. It was, we can put you in this facility and we'll make it work, and you have to give everything up to go there. Well, for somebody who still in their mind is independent, that's a huge shock to you. So they gave some options, but not viable options. So now we've created the viable solution.
Yeah, I want to bring up some comments here that people have been making. Justin, we want to talk about you being an amazing community leader, because you and Elaine and Kiwanis along the line have been helping within the community when COVID has struck, and
Yes,
the kids got taken their walking across the street as a group. You did graduation.
we did.
And then also Halloween.
Yes, ma'am.
The drive-through Halloween with the Kiwanis and out
Yep.
at the Ambets. So just want to give recognition of, in case anybody doesn't know who you are in North.
We also saved the American Legion this year.
Yes, you
Our
did.
American Legion was
did.
on the brink of being shut down. We raised about $12,000 for them. Abby's Donuts was closing because they ran out of funding due to the COVID shutdown. We raised $6,000 for them. They have retransitioned, have new owners. The original owners are back to owning it, which is very, very cool. And Sherry Lee, who was the original one to comment on there, you know, Sherry, you are one of the people who taught me not to give up on this city. So we can only be as cool as the people that we keep around us. So thank you, Sherry, for everything you're doing up in North Carolina now. That amazing woman works for the Humane Society up there every day helping animals. So another amazing person.
And I want to mention, you know, this is my niece that's up in Wisconsin, and she's actually watching this too.
That's
so
awesome.
Carmen. And Lynn Harrell, Ziggy needs a translator to clarify what's going on, not only for Ziggy, but for the people who think he's incoherent or incompetent simply because of the language barrier. And
Exactly.
he's not the only one out there that this is happening to.
Exactly.
And just wanted to make sure, okay, I'm owned the Myakka River Trading Post for 5 or 6 years back in the mid-90s. They also lived in the park behind. So we're learning a little bit.
So we probably know your aunt and uncle. That's awesome.
That is really wonderful. And thank you, Justin, for your time and effort. Hope everything turns out well for Ziggy. And those are the
Thank you,
people that
guys.
actually, the family that owned that Myakka River Trading Post. So thank you guys all for watching this because it's so critical. And I want to talk about how giving the city of Northport is and the people in it, how they come together as a community. And and when you're able to do this, um,
And
you know,
Marie, let's think about this for 1 minute. Northport is not Sarasota. We don't have millions and millions of dollars in art money flowing around. We don't have millions and millions of dollars in retired money from hedge fund families and stuff like that that live in our area. They tend to live up in the Sarasota area. And the people of this community endlessly, just for the activities that we have put together, have donated almost $100,000 throughout this year to make these kinds of things happen. Not only to us, but to Kiwanis, to the Friends of the Northport Library, to the Friends of the Shannon Staub Public Library, to our environmental programs. The people in this community throughout COVID, throughout a time where I thought we wouldn't have the resources, we've stepped up. I don't know if you guys are putting your stimulus money out there or what you're doing, but we appreciate how much of an effort this community truly is making.
and I do want to mention that because the average age in Northport, the city of Northport, and they're mainly working people,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
about 40 something. It used to be
Yep.
39, but it went up a little bit. And they are a community of a lot of young families. We have children,
Yeah.
a lot of children in that community. Now, I live in Charlotte County. I don't live in Northport, but I'm part of the community radio station,
Absolutely.
KDW 97.
Marie, you're an honorary North Porter.
Well, I do stuff up in Northport. And you know what? What's the difference? It was actually Northport. I'm doing the history of the city of Northport with Joan Morgan, and we have Gene Matthews and that coming on. I have my Sleuthing Eye Opening Tales of the Past radio show, and I'm doing the history of Northport with Joan and trying to get the words in the people's own stories that
Yep.
are still alive because you get it secondhand. You don't get the stories right. If somebody else is writing your story,
Yep.
you need to write your own story, even for your own family. Just saying to
Amen.
out there, history. And Lynn Harrell does a phenomenal job on the Charlotte County's history. She is a historian herself that does a lot of the thing in Charlotte County. And thank you, Lynn, for coming on and watching. I need to get you on my show sometime. But Justin, let's talk about where do we go from here now?
So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to work with the legal team to fight the Baker Act to figure out what the next steps are. From there, we're going to keep donating. We're going to get the trailer paid for and bought. We're going to make sure that as soon as Ziggy is ready to come home, he's got a safe place to go to and that he's ready to get there.
And I wanted to mention one other thing. One of the reasons when they took him in, he was kind of disabled because he hasn't had running water. He was getting water so he could go clean up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a double-edged sword there. He has no running water. He's trying to get water. Does he have a car? Does he drive?
He does have a car, but he lost the car keys about a month ago out in the disheveled pile of rubble outside. So we have been hunting for the car keys and have not been able to find them. And I'm not going to lie, it's probably a good thing that we can't find the car keys at this point. So I'm not really working as hard to find them as I probably should.
Okay, well, it'll have to be moved anyhow, so maybe
Yeah.
there's a locksmith out there that can help you guys with that too.
Yes, ma'am.
That may be listening. And
But yeah, on the point of that, the interesting part is I was told that one of the reasons of why they felt he was so incoherent and incompetent is because of how dirty he was. This is a man who hasn't had running water or been able to wash his clothes, and you're worried about how dirty he is? How about we worry about the fact that the man doesn't have running water and can't wash his clothes?
yeah, absolutely. And you know, at 87 years old, I have a 93-year-old mom that just is recovering from COVID, and I'm going to say recovering because we're very hopeful that she's recovering from it.
Yeah.
Uh, to look at it, we have care that she lives in her own home, and we have care coming in, helping her with things. Um, there's 6 of us kids, but all but one of my sisters lives close by. So,
I'm sorry your mom's having to deal with COVID like that. That's awful.
well, we'll talk off the air how she ended up getting it because that's a whole nother story. Um, anyhow, with this, Justin, I want to give you one last opportunity to tell people where to go. And Christine, bring Christine in. I want people
Come here a
to,
minute.
yeah, Christine,
So
come on
we're
up
on
here.
the air with WKDW. You guys, this is Christine Zagrabelny. Truly, come and eat at the Old World, support the restaurant, support them. They have supported our city in more ways than we can count.
Well, and
No matter.
let's talk a little bit about that, Christine, because I miss seeing you, Christine. I love you.
Thank you.
Christine has done, her and her family have done so much for the community. The look of the community is because of her husband, John. John,
Amen.
because of the Mediterranean look to it, but and he also raised over $1 million for muscular dystrophy for the Jerry Lewis Telethon, putting that on, just so people understand the history behind Old World. It is part of the community. They've always been there for the community. Christine always donates the food when we do the Leadership Northport. She's such a giver, and her family is. So we as a community need to go out and support these businesses that have always supported their community. Not only that, they're lovely people, and they're from Poland originally too.
Yeah.
And Christine, when you're dealing with some of this stuff, how does it resonate with you? Because you lived in Poland, so you know the history behind what has happened to Ziggy.
Well, Norfolk's been a part of our family, so we kind of adopting everybody and trying to help everybody here.
How do you feel about what Ziggy's going through?
Oh, it's awful.
It's awful.
He doesn't. He's a very smart guy, just he cannot express himself right, and we try to help him.
Yeah, and you're doing some of his translating for stuff. Yeah.
Poor Christine. I'm calling her phone 5 and 10 times a day. Please help me. I need more translation. She's like, all right.
No
and if
problem.
she doesn't answer the phone, I'm calling the restaurant screaming, go find Teresa. It's an emergency. They have truly, if it's not for them, none of this will be possible. And that's what people need to realize, that whether it was the donation drive for the donut shop, which they showed up to support, whether it was the fundraiser for the American Legion, where they allowed us to take up their storage room, the middle of the dining room floor with nothing but donations. Graduation, this building was so full of stuff that they literally had staff trying to step over it at times because people were bringing so much. Yeah, feeding the homeless over at the start of COVID. So a partnership with Buhoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through a partnership with Buhoff, they fed 175 people, if I remember the number correctly. You know, that's phenomenal. With San Pedro with Thanksgiving. During the summer, I did a Feed the Need kind of campaign where we fed the frontline workers. And Christine, again, was the one who provided the food, boxed everything up, made sure that it was within the COVID guidelines of the hospital. Like, the amount of work that this building has done and the staff and the owners have done for us throughout this time period, there isn't enough time for us to talk about how much benefit Northport gets just from this building.
And I want to and Christine, I've been trying to nail her to be on my show.
I know.
Yeah, to give her history, her own history, so we get it in her own words and that. But I can't say to you enough, Justin, how much we appreciate what you've done for the Northport community, but what you're doing for Ziggy, and what, Christine, what you do for the community and what you have done over all the years that you've lived here. It's just not right now. You've always been there for the community, and the community needs to recognize it, because there's people moving in every day, and they don't understand what an integral part you are to the community.
Exactly.
You really, really are. And you'll be here hopefully till the day all of us die.
Right.
but
Listen, she ain't leaving this restaurant.
Not
I've
right
been trying for years to get her to let me take it over, and the answer is always
Soon.
okay in 20 more years.
Soon.
Yeah, she says soon, but I know that really means another 20 years. So
yeah,
we'll talk about it when I'm 60.
and you'll have to learn how to make pierogies. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everybody for coming on. Actually, one of the gals said to contact risk management. No one should be held against their will and be forcibly medicated for being elderly, homeless, and unable to communicate in English.
Amen.
So we want to just say to everybody in the audience, thank you. Tonight at Old World from 5 to 8 p.m., correct? Go ahead.
Yep. Marie, I'm going to walk to the front of the restaurant. Let me show you the baby grand piano that was delivered here. Hold on.
Okay. And Ziggy was going to come in and play, and now he's being held.
Yep.
Yeah.
It won't be Ziggy, but we will have performers coming into play throughout the night tonight and throughout the night tomorrow. We want to make sure that we're still raising the money. So we want you to come on out, enjoy your evening at the Old World Restaurant. This is the baby grand that they have delivered for us.
Oh, nice.
So
Where did you get that from? Yeah, where did you get that from?
I'm not allowed to disclose that because it was
Okay.
donated and the company doesn't want them to develop an
Okay,
expectation.
I get that because I have that happen to me. They don't want people to know, so they
Yeah.
get for the question. Yes. So 5 to 8 p.m. tonight.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
and what do they do? Come to the restaurant and
Yep, come to the restaurant. We're asking for a suggested donation of $20 per person, kind of sort of like a cover charge. You can make your donation while you're here. All of that will go towards Ziggy. Whether at this point it is the trailer or assisted living, it will go towards his housing. My goal is still to put it towards the trailer. But depending on what happens over the next 24 hours with the medical situation, I just want to make sure that people understand it will still be used for long-term housing for Ziggy.
yeah, very good, Justin. And tomorrow night too, you have the same going on, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We'll
Okay.
be out here again tomorrow night from 5 to 8.
And those
Hopefully we'll break Ziggy out and he'll be here playing tomorrow night.
okay, and today is Sunday,
Yes, ma'am.
January 3rd, and tomorrow is Monday, January 4th.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Old World Restaurant. I'm always wanting to call it the cheese shop because I've lived here that long.
It still is the tea shop to me. Marie, do you remember the rotating dessert case at the front of the restaurant? Oh, when I was little, 3 and 4 years old, I used to leave my face print up against it as I would stare at the cheesecake. And no joke, my mom would bring me up here for breakfast dates on Saturday morning, and my go-to had to be the carrot cake. And it was like 6-7 inches tall. Oh my gosh, the best carrot cake in the world.
And after we're done here, I gotta ask Christine because I know that they did a movie shoot there just before COVID, but I don't know the premise and if it's scheduled to come out.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be airing here soon.
Oh, okay. So the Old World will be in a movie soon to be done. Okay. Oh, they still have the Christmas tree up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when they filmed it, they had to leave their Christmas tree up because it was a Christmas. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, last year the Christmas tree was up until almost March.
Yeah. Because
you guys, I just want to thank you all for working with us as we're doing this a little bit different than normal. I know the interruptions are a little bit unexpected, but this is about as fluid as an event can get, and you guys are literally watching it as it's happening. So
thank you, Justin, and thank you to the audience. Again, this is Marie LaBrosse. I'm with WKDW 97.5 FM out of Northport, Florida. You'll be hearing this broadcast on the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower. And my guest actually co-hosting with me today is Justin Willis, and we're talking about Ziggy. And I would say his last name, but I kill English word.
Zizimic.
Okay. Thank you guys all for coming on, and we'll talk to you again later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie, for having me on.